issued a stern warning to the West. Putin says he can deploy conventional missiles within striking distance of U.S. and its European allies if it allows Ukraine to strike deeper into Russia with long-range Western weapons. Our next report tells you how the situation has echoes of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
In 1962, the world came perilously close to a catastrophe. The Cuban Missile Crisis brought the erstwhile Soviet Union and the US to the brink of a nuclear confrontation. It may be time now to remember the chilling lessons from that event. In a move that threatens to dramatically alter the global strategic balance, Russian President Vladimir Putin has stated his willingness to deploy conventional missiles within striking distance of the United States and its European allies.
We are thinking that if they consider it possible to deliver such weapons to the combat zone to launch strikes on our territory and create problems for us, why don't we have the right to supply weapons of the same type to some regions of the world where they can be used to launch strikes on sensitive facilities of the countries that do it to Russia? The answer may be asymmetric.
This bold assertion comes amidst escalating tensions over the West's supply of long-range weapons to Ukraine, enabling Kyiv to strike deeper into Russian territory. Now over 2 years old, the Russia-Ukraine war seems to have now entered a new and more menacing terrain. Putin's sharp rhetoric about the risk of a global war adds another layer of complexity to the West's challenge in addressing the advance of Russian troops in Ukraine. While Western leaders and Ukraine have downplayed Russia's warnings, repeated cautions against an attack on a NATO member underscore the gravity of the situation.
NATO has no plans to deploy forces to Ukraine. We are focusing on how we can establish a more a stronger framework for our support with a institutionalized framework for the support to Ukraine.
Both Putin and US President Joe Biden have acknowledged that a direct conflict between the two largest nuclear powers will be a perilous step towards World War III. Yet, as the situation in Ukraine escalates, the risks of miscalculation or unintended escalation grows ever more palpable. Your report, Beyond World is One.
The Swiss Peace Summit is to take place later this month. WION's Mohammed Saleh spoke with former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton about the significance of the summit. That and much more in a freewheeling interview. Listen to this exclusive conversation.
Mr. Bolton, thank you very much indeed, sir, for joining us here on Beyond. And let me actually start off with this question that a lot of people have been pondering about. Now, there is going to be a Ukraine Peace Summit that will be held in Switzerland later this month. But what is interesting is that Russia is not going to be a part of it. But the United States, of course, would be. What sense does it make to take part in a peace summit where one of the actors in this war, the Russians who invaded into Ukraine, are not even taking part?
Well, it doesn't make any sense, and I don't expect any real movement. I don't expect any new proposals. In fact, we saw President Zelensky of Ukraine this past weekend in Singapore claim that China, and I think he's probably right, but claim that China is actively working to make sure that no progress is made in Lausanne. It doesn't surprise me that China's doing that. I don't know why they think it's worth the effort. It's pretty clear that the differences that remain between Russia and Ukraine are not going to be bridged in this kind of peace conference.
At the start of this conflict, before this conflict started, the Russians and the Chinese, of course, signed a no-limits agreement. And ever since this war broke out, the United States has been trying to impose sanctions on Russia. It's been trying to dissuade China from helping Russia out. Now, the Chinese at least have said that they're not sending any weapons to the Russian side. But the fact is there are components that seem to be manufactured within China that have been found in the Russian weapons. How does the United States look at the role that China has played, perhaps not an active one, but backing the Chinese letting the Chinese electronics be made available to the Russians. How do the Americans perceive that?
Well, I think the U.S. government is not concerned enough about what's happening because China's support manifests itself in a lot of different ways, including using China's opaque financial system to help launder sanctioned Russian money out into international markets, substantially increasing Chinese purchases of Russian oil and gas, and doing a lot of other things to facilitate the Russian war effort. I think it's part of what has emerged in the past year as a new axis between Beijing and Moscow. It reminds us of the Sino-Soviet alliance during the Cold War, except this time China is very much the dominant partner and Russia's clearly the junior partner. But I think you can see the assistance North Korea has provided Russia, selling artillery and ammunition. North Korea obviously being one of the outriders of this new axis, along with Iran and Syria, Belarus, and other countries. So it's a very disturbing prospect, and really in many respects it's no longer a European war with Chinese involvement. It has global implications.
For all the latest news, download the WeOn app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.